Hello and welcome to this video from zonalaudio.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Elektron Digitone and making harder styles of electronic music utilising this wonderful FM groove box. This is a pattern from DN Weapons from zonalaudio.com, which you can download now. We'll put a link in the description. Pattern 16. We'll go to pattern 13. We have this kick, the arp, and the bass. Just want to alter there. So looking at the kick, it is BD Bdvunk. You can hear straight away it's going to reverb and a little bit of delay. But if doing this, just make sure your high pass is set. Ideally on the chorus as well, just a little bit. We're not sending kick to that one. So what gives the kick the sound here is all our operators and carriers are set fairly low, and then we have Sin A on a very fast attack and decay. Sin B just set to a tiny amount. We can go into kind of hardcore territories a little bit there. And then the filter is doing a lot of heavy lifting on the sound. Resonance really beefs up the sound, and the decay time also determines the style of kick that we achieve. Then both LFO1 and LFO2 are mapped to sin pitch, with LFO2 moving faster. So these are providing us with more snap front of the sound and really shape the initial transient using these two depth knobs. By the way, really handy tip, if you want to snap to 0 on anything, hold down Funk and you can snap to increments. Okay, so pretty steady pattern, but with some trick conditions. So much lower velocity and probability just enough interest to keep this one bar loop fairly interesting. Then the hi-hat. So we've got it set a bit higher and we're on algorithm 5. And we're really looking for this noise for the hi-hat, which is helped by setting these high also. Obviously lots of detune there, feedback. You can hear it gets that noisier sound when it's at around 55. Filter set really high, as you might expect for a hi-hat. Also giving it a bit of body with the resonance in this area. Very short decay and actually quite a long release. But you might notice a little bit of variation in the amp sustain. We can turn this fade off. We have the mode to Trig, so is it like random / sample and hold waveform, set quite fast, so every time the Trig hits, essentially we get a new value for the sustain. And we could make this more obvious by putting it on the decay and just setting the decay. Full drive. By the way, the sample, or the sound I should say, is HH mill. And obviously you can dial all these into taste. So we've got quite a lot of master overdrive here. Take that off. And then this ARP sound has a lot of drive as well. We can make that a bit smoother sounding by removing that. So a little bit of attack, but then the sound is really coming from the filter. And again, this is something you could perform, automate, or map to an LFO. We do have some things going on the LFO already. But it's not affecting the sound dramatically, so you could always change that up. So we have some interesting intervals here for the carriers and operators. So A feeding back and then going into C. And we have 2.5 and 0.5. And then B going into B. And again, we've got this division that is a bit strange and gives a nice eerie tone. Obviously, tweaking these parameters is going to get a significantly different sound as well. performance tip here. If I bring all these in, do function yes for save pattern, and now I'm going to hold down the MIDI button, play around with the parameters, and then do reload. Now, because I have a pattern mute mode enabled, which I can do with function and then double tapping the mute button, when they show up in this more purple color, they are pattern mutes. So if I were to go to a different pattern, this would remember. Likewise, if I save the pattern in the temp memory and reload it, it's going to remember the mute state. Okay, so we've jumped over to pattern 16. We'll take a look at this one in a bit more depth. So utilizing one track for kick and hi-hat. So when I hold this down here, we can see we're on many different parameter locks, giving it its own sound. Be aware that if you're tweaking some parameters for the kick, it's possible that that parameter will not be locked for the hi-hat, essentially. So in this example, tweaking the envelope depth will also affect the hi-hat. Because we don't see the yellow box around it. But if you notice one of these, you can just dial that in. Okay, so to achieve the kick sound, the operators and carriers are all very low, and then we're using an envelope on Syn B to give that attack. So on here, these are locked. So it will change temporarily as it's moving, as it passes over the trig, but it will return to this locked value. One nice tip to get around this is to set the parameter, or the trig condition I should say, as fill negative. So if I just want to listen alone, I can just jib off record. Now we can tweak the kick. And then you can actually save that fill state. If I hold yes here, pretty sure that will keep that. And then when I press page again, it will take off the fill state. Really about dialing in the perfect amount of the parameter. So also worth noting, we have Unison here. Spread is at 0, and we've not locked any voices, but it makes the kick much firmer. FM synthesis is fantastic for all types of sounds, including kicks, but sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get that kind of heavy, low, weighty element that you want out of a kick. And just doubling up with Unison can help that. So bearing in mind, if you do download this product, keep an eye on that. Most of them have Unison for the kick. And it's not like a stereo spreading, it's just doubling up the voice, so it's louder, punchier. If I take page off, we get that returning hi-hat. So here we have like a gnarly ARP bass, but it is EQ'd pretty high, so not too much lows interfering with the kick. So we also have a more offbeat bass. So a nice rhythmic bass to carry things through. Operators are quite low. No detune, some feedback, no detuning the operators, but again, this is really where we're affecting the timbre the most. So many possibilities with just one patch. If I move too far away from where I want it to be, remember we have the save button and it reloads our synth conveniently because we're going to look at that next. So also on an ARP, and to get to the ARP menu, function Syn1. So we have a sequence note of 8 lengths, set to down, range to 2. And then for the sound design, the operators and carriers are still quite low. We've got a lot of feedback, but if we go to function Trig, which gets us to the setup menu, the octave is 2 above. So even though we're playing C5, we're arpeggiating into higher notes, and we get this much higher pitched sound. And this time the operators and carriers are slightly detuned from one another, and we have this LFO on syn level A, which when we increase it, gives like a harsher sound to the start of the sound. Similar thing with the syn harmonics here. Okay, and just for the bass, it's quite simple sound. It is the bass drum originally, and we just have a bit of attack on it, so without that slower attack, and we'll just temporarily take out that hi-hat again. Step record has to be off to enable the fill, and then I held page down and held yes to temporarily keep it in this fill state. And then yeah, the bass, so it has some attack on it, and then we have shifted it forward on the timeline. To give it a slightly different groove. And you could play around with this, a kind of more lazy vibe. I like having it come in a little bit early, makes it nice and energetic. Okay, thanks for watching. Remember, all the sounds and patterns that you heard are downloadable from zonelaudio.com, DN Weapons. If you found this video useful, helpful, informative in any way, please don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell so you can see when we release more videos like this. That's it for now. Cheers. Bye.